Today we'll be going over the non-linear timeline theory. We'll be going over exactly what makes this theory so cool, believable, and then finally the reasons against it. The most popular variant of this theory is William equals Man in Black. It states that William's scenes were from 30 years ago when the park had the critical failure, and that we would get to see the White Knight we know and love become the more monstrous Man in Black. Please note, so much proof and or debunking evidence exists, I chose only what I think best represents each side. Without a doubt, your point may or may not be covered. Please feel free to leave it in a comment below. Thank you. Starting off on the supporting side, when William first arrives at the park and begins orientation, they reach the top of the escalator, and we can see a bit of an oddity. By all accounts, inside and outside of the show, this here is the Westworld logo shown all over the place. However, when they do hit the top, this is the logo that's shown. After some digging, we can confirm this logo was from 30 years ago, the early days of the park. Initially, a lot of people thought this was a older logo because of the look of it. Clearly, the modern one has a more sleek design, and the older one has a more 70-esque feel. But it's proven in a flashback to the young Ford being handed a clipboard by another scientist who clearly has the logo on his jacket. So the question is, why would this 30-year-old logo be shown all over the place when William is first introduced to the park if his story was taking place in the modern age? The next point is made when looking at the relationship of the Man in Black and Lawrence.
You know, you and I hunted down Ghost Nation braves in their winter grounds. I know the whiskey you like to drink. I know the tune you whistle when you're taking a piss.
This clearly shows a positive relationship in past encounters, that these two have been on so many adventures, he even looks back at it with admiration. This screenshot here was taken from an upcoming episode preview, and it clearly shows William and Dolores being aided by Lawrence. Comparing the two images, it also looks like a younger version of Lawrence. We have a pretty good understanding that William is meant to show how the park consumes you, or changes you. I discussed the yin and yang imagery in my first video, but to make it short and sweet, it showed a contrast of good versus evil, with an evil side encroaching a good William.
This place seduces everybody, eventually. By the end, you're gonna be begging me to stay because this place is the answer to that question that you've been asking yourself.
What question?
Who you really are. Feel free to be someone else. Well, fuck you.
Then, only hours into William being at the actual park, blood gets splattered on his pearly white hat. I think this is the perfect way to symbolize how it's already started to take effect. It's already started to stain his lawfully good ways. Then at the end of episode 4, we see this exact thing happen when he gives into the temptation to go to the dark side.
You will be just fine with a trip down the dark side. And so will you. Trust me.
Is that any way to treat an old friend? I've been coming here for 30 years, but you still don't remember me, do you? You don't understand, Lawrence. Been coming here for 30 years. You know, since I was born here.
But I just had to say that I'm such an admirer of yours. Your foundation literally saved my sister's life.
One more word and I'll cut your throat, understand? What if I told you I'm here to set you free?
With this character analysis, we can deduce the Man in Black isn't currently, or wasn't always, a complete bad guy, and that in William's side, his white hat has already started to give into the temptation. Now, in my opinion, this information doesn't prove anything 100%, but without a doubt, I can see where the theory developed from, and the points in favor of it. I do say this makes a pretty good argument. A lot of things are very similar and unexplainable currently. But with that in mind, let's move into the second part of the video and the arguments made against the theory. The biggest breaking point for this theory is at the end of episode 3. For William to be the Man in Black, it means that no influence or connection to the Man in Black could occur within William's time frame. So the big reveal was when Dolores has the flashback in the barn of the Man in Black, and then runs away from the house and manages to reach William. Now, a lot of people have written this off as good editing, meant to simply give us the impression these events occurred in the order they did, mainly due to the fact that a scene comes in between the time where she sees the Man in Black and she meets William. I think while this could be what occurs, only time will tell, and with the information we have now, I just don't think it is. To our next point, we'll now look at the hosts inside the park. We get a glimpse into the original hosts in the first episode when Ford sits in the sublevels below. It's pretty clear that the person he's talking to is a robot because of the distinct mechanical sounds. He repeats himself, and most likely his responses are strictly scripted.
Yeah, I'll drink to that.
The old coffin varnish. Shall we drink to the lady with the white shoes?
Old Bill here was always a good listener. Yeah, he was the second host we ever built.
Then here, Ford describes the problems the hosts faced back then and how easy it was to tell them apart.
They repeated themselves, broke down constantly. A simple handshake would give them away.
Now think back to the interactions both William and the Man in Black have had with their hosts. In both cases, they seem flawless and identical. If the theory was true, the host that William would be interacting with would be closer to Bill here. And looking at the very first host that he meets, it doesn't appear that she functions anywhere close to Bill.
You want to ask, so ask.
Are you real?
Well, if you can't tell, does it matter?
Finally, let's take a look at the control room. In episode 4, we see Dolores with William going off her normal loop, and management can't tell if she's with a guest because Ford's story is disrupting so much. But when this happens, we get a great shot of the control room, seeing exactly who is in the same time frame as William, because this is also when they send Behavior to go retrieve Dolores. Now let's take a look at the control room once again with the Man in Black later in the episode uses the cigars to break Hector out of jail.
I've got a request for a pyrotechnic effect. Los Diablos, low yield, 2 charges.
So let's recap. We have the same layout, the same person in charge, and the same technology being used. So you're telling me in 30 years Stubbs hasn't aged, they haven't improved the technology in this room, nor have they changed the layout of the room at all. Now, if William does end up becoming the Man in Black, this scene will be pretty hard to explain, but this is a science fiction show, and the writers could simply say that Stubbs has been a host this whole time. But with that in mind, guys, that's the reasons for, that's the reasons against. I hope you use this. I hope you form your own opinion. Please comment on the subreddit. Much love, everybody. See you next time.